Today, we're going to be covering residential lighting controls. This is a course that is AIA approved. I noticed that a few of you are architects, so this is an AIA accredited course today. I do want to be just clear as we go into this that this course is not IDCEC approved. This is an AIA course. However, for those interior designers on the call, you will be getting a certificate of completion that Marcio will send out and follow up along with some other materials. And that is something that you will have for attending this course today. Just a little housekeeping things here. If any of you have questions, you can use the chat box there. We'll make sure that we keep an eye on that throughout the presentation so that we can answer those. I think Jeff, already posted that right in there. And then of course, at the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A time. So please make sure that you speak up if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to answer those for you. So let's jump into the presentation. The learning objectives that we are going to have today, we will be discussing standard versus automated lighting control. We'll also review the lighting control design terminology. We're going to be using a lot of different terms throughout this presentation, so we want to make sure that we define what those terms are. We'll talk about the lighting control system components, the types of lighting control solutions that are out there, and then, of course, the most important thing to your clients, which are the benefits of lighting control and how that can enhance your project. We'll also discuss some design considerations that you would take as a design build professional in order to integrate lighting control into the designs that you're doing. Now, this is an official CEU course, so I'm not going to be speaking about any specific brands throughout this course today. At the end of the CEU, I'll speak, to different brands, but for the purpose of this course, we will be talking about lighting control in general. We'll start with standard versus automated lighting control. And every project that you're going to design is going to have some form of lighting control. It's by far the most popular technology that's used in projects today. And it's really a matter of what level of lighting control technology that makes the most sense for you and for your client, of course. The most widely used type is, of course, the switch, which is going to turn on and off. So with that being said, we're not live, so we'll all kind of do this question and answer it myself. But can anybody help me define what standard lighting control is? Well, what standard lighting control is exactly what you see pictured, which you see in the majority of homes here in the US, which is just a standard switch that goes on and off. But let's dive a little bit deeper into this concept and understand better what the difference is between that standard lighting control and automated lighting control. So we start with a question again, what is automated control? Well, when I work with the design build professionals like yourself, I always like to point out in the word automated, it can help you think about the answer to this question by using that word automated. So an automated lighting control system is a lighting control system where there are going to be events that happen automatically. So there's one case where you would be able to control the lighting in your home, of course, but when it's automated, things will happen throughout the home automatically based on the time of day or based on what the client likes to do in the home. So there's absolutely no action that is required by the client when the lighting control system is automated. So as an example, the astronomical time clock can be used. This is typically used as part of, the main brain of the system that will control this lighting control. And it will allow the outdoor lights to turn on or off for a client based on the time of day, and the same with the indoor lights as well. So for example, in my own home, I don't like to walk into a dark home, and during the season when it gets dark a little earlier, my system uses that astronomical clock feature, and it will have those lights in my home just in certain key areas. They'll come on 10 minutes before the sun goes down. And that astronomical clock knows exactly where the sun is no matter what time of year and can make those adjustments. Also keeps my fur babies happy because they're not sitting there in a dark home waiting for me to come home. So that's a really great example of things that happen automatically. Some other examples of that would be an away button. And this is a single touch of a button example. And in this case, a away button can turn most of the lights off, but it can also leave porch lights on. Pathway buttons can turn lights on throughout the hallways of the home to only 50% light level. And then for added security, you could have something called a panic button, which a lot of clients do like to have in their home. And that can turn all of the interior lights to a 100% light level and even cause the exterior lights to flash. A client can also put a home in vacation mode, and with automated lighting control, it can give the look that the home is lived in even while the client's away, and it can even replay the lights as they were recorded based on the homeowner's actual usage. So a lot of added security. And for the purpose of this course, we are going to be focusing on automated lighting control systems. So the automated lighting control is really only going to typically be one part of a complete integrated home technology
Participant
system.
has joined the meeting.
So what you see in this image here is kind of the foundation of the home being built on the control system. And then you can also see some of the other aspects and technologies that might be integrated to a complete home technology platform. So of course, the lighting control is going to be a very important part, but it can also include integration with things like motorized shades, climate control of the HVAC system, even home entertainment, and then utilizing different interfaces like touchscreens, keypads, and then clients' mobile devices. And of course, this is all built on the foundation of the infrastructure or the wiring of a home and the control system. So there are a lot of different technologies on the market today, and typically those different technologies and brands are going to really only focus on one of those categories or maybe just a couple of them. But to have a seamless integrated solution, including lighting control, you do want to consider some of the pros and cons of that system and making sure that if the client does want to have other types of technology, that it can easily be integrated together. It's a very important thing to think of when a client is going to utilize automated lighting control. Now we're going to jump into the residential lighting control design terminology, and we will use these terms throughout the presentation. We'll review what a lighting load is, a motor load, the load type, the zone, and the scene. And these are all typical things that you might have these conversations with your client, either with a technology professional or even with a lighting design. And I'm just going to make a little reminder, if everybody can please mute, that would be really helpful. Thank you so much. All right, and starting with the lighting load. So a lighting load is really going to be a single fixture or a group of fixtures that are wired together. You can see some examples of this depicted in the image here. So for example, a lighting load might have just one fixture that is connected to it. In that case, it's wired directly back to a wall switch. or in some cases, it can be a group of fixtures that are all wired together. So in a lighting load, basically, if you use your control switch to either turn that load on or off, it's going to affect all of the lights that are connected to that load, all of the fixtures connected, like you see in the image here. A motor load is a load that is wired to and controlled by a wall control or a switch. So again, it's anything that's going to be controlled directly on the wall with a switch or with a keypad. Now we're going to go over some of the different load types that you might find on your projects today. So to name a few of those, we have incandescent, we have MLV or magnetic low voltage, and ELV, which is electronic low voltage. There are also fluorescent lights out there. And of course, what are the most common types of loads today? Those would be the LEDs, of course, a number of different types of LEDs that are out there on the market. And then you also have load types that pertain to your window coverings. So things like motorized shades or even motorized drapes or shutters. And then, of course, your fans as well. When you're talking about these types of automated lighting control systems, the lighting zone is going to be a very important aspect of that. And a lighting zone is going to be a single load or a group of loads controlled as one. So we saw a depiction of that a little earlier when we talked about what a load was and defined that. But in this example here, we have 3 zones of light in this room. So one for the recessed lights on the left, one for the ceiling fan, and then one for the recessed lights on the right. So each of these would be considered, in this lighting zone area. A lighting scene is a very important part of having these automated lighting control systems. So a lighting scene is a setting where a lighting zone is turned on and all of those loads in that zone are set to a predetermined dimmable level. So some examples of what that might be would be a home button, a pathway, a good night, entertain, etc. Or in some cases, it might be as simple as the client just wanting something like high, medium, and low. And each one of those scenes is going to have the lights go to that predetermined dimming level when that scene is selected. And it can be selected on a keypad, kind of like we see in the image here. And that scene can not only affect the room that the client is in, where the keypad might be located, but a scene can affect not only a single room, but also multiple rooms in the home, anywhere where there's lighting control in the home. And it can even be used for the whole house, including the indoor and the outdoor areas. Typically, scenes can be activity based. So some of those examples that I gave, like home, pathway, good night, entertain, for example, those are all going to be based on the client's lifestyle and activities in the home. And that's another great thing to point out about automated lighting control is it really can be customized to enhance your client's lifestyle. Now what we're going to do is jump into the lighting control system components. So starting out with the foundation of that lighting control system, which is the lighting control processor. And this is going to be the brain of the system. It's going to connect and control all of the system components that we're going to talk about. These lighting control processors, in most cases, are also going to have that astronomic clock built into them. And almost all lighting control systems are going to require some type of processor in the system. It is the main brain, and it is going to be the most critical. Now we'll talk about dimming components here that we see on the screen. So we have dimming and relay modules. So with a dimming module, a line voltage device is physically connected to this dimming module here, and it's able to control one or even more loads. Every manufacturer and brand out there controls a variety of different numbers of loads, and these dimming modules are all going to be predetermined with the number of loads that they can control. The relay modules are for loads that are not dimmed but switched. So that would be loads such as fluorescent lights, even some landscape lights, but also for those motor loads. So things like your fans, fireplaces, anything that's going to have a motor load. And the module specification is going to be dependent upon the load type. It's going to be really important to know the fixture schedule ahead of time to be able to determine the proper dimming and relay modules that would be used in a project. The next thing here is really important, which is the enclosures. So this is basically going to house all of the dimming modules, the relay modules, and even the processor in some cases. It may not be this way in every single project, but in some cases, the technology integrator may decide to put the processor right there with the dimming modules and relay modules. And these are going to come in a variety of different sizes. It's all going to be based upon that lighting load schedule and how many loads in the home are going to be controlled. Again, all of the lighting loads are running back to this dimming module. This is typically done in a centralized lighting system, and I'm going to explain that in a little bit more detail in the coming slides here. But the enclosure size is really going to be based on the size of the home and the client's needs, and that lighting load schedule comes in a variety of different sizes. They don't all need to be so large. And these are installed right into the wall of the home in a place that's predetermined by a design build professional like yourself. The user interfaces are a very, very important part of the system components. And the user interfaces that we're going to review will be the keypads, a controllable dimmer, a controllable switch, and then touchscreen interfaces as well. Starting with the keypads, keypads come in a variety of different styles and options. Typically, they're going to be placed on the wall. In some examples, like you might see here, where those would go right into the wall, but there are also wireless options, a variety of those that are out there on the market that can be placed on a tabletop or really anywhere that it's convenient for the client on a nightstand, etc. There's a number of different styles and aesthetics that can help to enhance your design. This is typically one area as a design build professional that you would really get involved in, and one of the system components that you would play a critical role in determining what aesthetically will look best for the client and also perform well for the client, because that's an important part of it. So again, just one thing to stress on this keypad part here is that the keypads, they can be low or line voltage, and they are going to control the system not only in the room that they're in, but really anywhere in the home that you have lighting control. So this is where you're typically going to have scenes, etc., and you'll be able to access everything in the home. Controllable dimmers and switches are going to be a line voltage control point. They're going to communicate with the lighting system, typically wirelessly for the communication part, but they're still going to hardwire the line voltage in the wall. Again, we're going to talk about some diagrams and exactly how this would work. But you also have a variety of different options and styles for controllable dimmers and switches. They're going to control the load that they're connected to. And if they're part of a greater lighting control system, they can also control loads outside of that room as well. So you can use something as simple as just a rocker or it can be something as detailed as having engraved activities customized to the client
has joined the
as
meeting.
well. Touch screens are another important system component. So this might be an area where your client is going to want even greater control and flexibility. So a low voltage or wireless touch screen is capable of controlling, of course, the lighting system, but it can also expand to control other subsystems in the home. So it's going to give you a lot of flexibility to control additional things like the music, the video that the client might also want to watch in the room. You can even use it to see security cameras and HVAC control. So it's important also when you're controlling the lighting with a touchscreen, the nice thing is you're going to get something called two-way feedback, meaning as you change the lighting control, you're going to visibly be able to see those lighting control levels changing on the touchscreen. So this is a really great option for the client that is controlling the home even while they're away. So I say that they're low voltage wired or wireless. That wireless option would control and include the smartphones, tablets, anything wireless client will want to use to access the system is all kind of encompassing in that touchscreen user interface option. There are also some other system components that include different accessories that can be added to the system. So these are accessories that truly take the home from just being smart and
join the meeting.
Having it be controlled, also to truly being automated. So utilizing things like an occupancy sensor can actually control a load, and it can control that load based on sensing whether or not there's a person in the room. So scenes can be programmed based on the time of day, and when it senses someone in the room, it can automatically make changes to that. Also, you can include things like a photo cell sensor, like we see in the image here. It's going to measure the level of available sunlight in the room, and it can adjust the artificial electrical light appropriately to maintain an optimal light level. This is what's used when someone might do daylight harvesting in a home, where you want to be able to balance the amount of electric and natural light to conserve energy and help with sustainability, etc. We also here have an accessory of the wireless gateway, and this is designed to enable wireless communication of different types of dimmers and keypads, and then even different types of user interface remotes to control these systems as well. So this helps to allow wireless communication to take place. It isn't required on every system, but these are additional accessories of the system components that can be added. The next thing that we are going to dive into here are the different types of systems. So you have three types of systems that we're going to discuss in the presentation today. We will discuss a centralized system, a conventionally wired system, and a hybrid system, and what all of these mean. So starting out here with the centralized system. So with centralized systems here, you're going to have a variety of different components, which we just covered on the previous slides. You'll have your touch screens or keypads, and you will also have your low voltage brain of the system, your processor, which we talked about. And all of the lighting loads in this example, this is why it's so important to plan early for this type of system. All of the lighting loads ran back to those lighting modules and relays that we talked about, depending upon the type of lighting load that they're controlling. So all of those loads are ran to the centralized panel here. And then the control for those lighting loads can be done, like I mentioned, with the touchscreen, with a keypad or with, one of those controllable dimmers in the room, of course. So you've got a lot of options here to help your client really clean up wall clutter. That's going to be the biggest benefit of this type of a system. Some important things to remember is that these types of systems do often require certified installers to put them in. This isn't something that every electrician can do. There are certainly some that can, but every manufacturer that makes these types of centralized lighting systems, they do require certification for the installers. So the nice thing about this, again, like I mentioned, you're going to get a reduction of wall clutter, and your user interfaces are going to be able to be placed in very convenient locations to control the lighting, and of course, still meet local building codes. And so you're going to have a way to really determine how you want the lighting control system to look in the rooms without having to have large banks of dimmers or light switches to control the loads in the room. The way that the wire infrastructure looks for a centralized system is depicted on this slide here. So like I mentioned, all of the lighting loads are ran back to that dimming panel here, to the enclosure. And the enclosure typically wants to be located in a central area of the home. Sometimes you may have to split up the enclosure locations. That's really where the technology professional will come in and help to advise you on the best place to put that. So all of your lighting loads will run back to the dimming modules here in the enclosure. And then the control for the room, rather than having many banks of light switches to control many loads of lights, for example, like in this great room, you can utilize a touch screen or a keypad to control all of those loads and reduce the amount of wall clutter and enhance your aesthetic and your design. It also, as you can see here, just really simplifies the experience of controlling the lighting. We'll talk about some of the applications where a centralized system can be used. So most typically, we're going to find this in new construction because there is a lot of planning that needs to be involved to prepare for a centralized lighting system. Again, your technology professional will work with you, and the most important document that can help determine that is going to be the lighting load schedule. It also can be done in major renovations where you're going to open the walls. Again, this is a different type of wiring for the lights, so you're going to want to be able to have access to run those wires. Or even if someone's doing a home addition, again, the walls will be open and you'll be able to run the proper wires for this centralized lighting solution. Now we're going to talk about the conventionally wired systems. So with the conventionally wired system, also referred to as line voltage, this is the most common way that homes are wired for lighting control. The electrician doesn't have to do anything different at all with the wiring. It is just conventional, typical wiring where you have all of the loads in the room ran to the controllable dimmers or switches to control those loads. So it does allow you to control all of these loads, but you lose the ability to have the control over the aesthetic with just simplifying that to a single keypad or touchscreen like you do with those centralized lighting systems. You still have to have the line voltage controls for all of those loads. However, with automated lighting control systems, you can still control all of those devices wirelessly. So with a conventionally wired lighting control system, you would replace those existing, for lack of a better term, dumb dimmers or switches with smart dimmers and switches, like you see in the example here. They would control the line voltage wired connected lights and loads, and then they communicate wirelessly back to the processor of the system. And the client would then have the ability to expand upon that to other types of user interfaces that they might want to utilize to control any of those lights. It takes a typical conventionally wired lighting system and makes it smart. So they can use things like their mobile device to control those lights from wherever they are. They can also use remotes. They can use those wireless tabletop keypads to control them, and then also dedicated touchscreens. So all of that communication becomes wireless. Typically, in this type of a system, the types of wireless technology that are used, it isn't commonly going to be Wi-Fi like you would use for other wireless streaming devices in your home or for your mobile device. It is going to be an RF radio frequency based communication, so it is going to enhance reliability even though it is wireless. So taking it a step further, the wireless technology that I just mentioned, it's come a very long way. So some of the common misconceptions of wireless technology is that, maybe it's not reliable, or there might be interference, or, the ability for people to hack into the system and be controlled, by the neighbor, for example. But the technology has come so far, those really aren't concerns that you would need to have today. So there are different types of wireless technology, like I just mentioned. So point to point is the processor controlling directly with those controllable dimmers, switches, and keypads. And in that case, depending upon the distance, sometimes a repeater is also required when you're doing point to point. And then there's RF mesh networking. And in that case, each controllable dimmer and switch, and even the keypads and remotes, they all create nodes of the system. So in effect, each of these RF devices that are connected also act as a repeater, so you don't have to add additional pieces of hardware in that RF mesh network type of wireless communication. Also, with mesh networking, the more wireless devices that you have on that network, the greater that mesh becomes. And so the communication becomes more powerful, faster, and even more reliable. And then there's also a technology called X10 or UPB, and that utilizes existing line voltage wiring in the home to communicate. It sends out pulses on the neutral wire. That is something that we don't commonly see done, but it is a technology that has existed. Typically, you're going to see that RF point to point or mesh networking for the lighting control systems. This is an example here of the way that the communication goes in a radio frequency mesh network. So every device here that you see, they're actually black keypads, but they look like little black boxes. When a signal is sent, it is going to repeat off of every wireless device in the home. And that is going to create that mesh network, as you see here being depicted. And it's going to make that communication even more fast and reliable, because as you can see, those wireless devices are spread throughout the home, so that communication path never has to go far. For example, this side would never have to speak to this on the other side of the home either. So you have a nice mesh here that creates a fast mode of communication and a reliable mode of communication wirelessly in a home. Some of the applications for a conventionally wired system where you would use wireless control would be for an existing home or a retrofit example. You don't have to change the wiring at all in an existing home to get smart lighting control. You just replace those dimmers and switches with the smart ones. Also in renovations, home additions, and even in some cases, it does make sense to do it even in new construction projects too. There are also cases where in some homes you might want to do a hybrid, and that would be a mixture of the centralized and the conventionally wired option where you would use wireless communication. Typically, a client would do this maybe in areas of the home where you're going to have a lot of lighting loads, like a great room, a master bedroom, any type of open entertainment space. Those areas can be centralized to reduce the number of dimmers and switches on the wall, so you get a clean user interface control with either a keypad or a touch screen versus those big banks of switches. And then in other secondary areas of the home, guest bedrooms, bathrooms, etc., you can just replace the conventionally wired dimmers or switches with the smart ones, and then everything can be controlled together with the automated lighting control system. This is an example of how a hybrid system might look. So key areas of the home being wired back to that centralized module and enclosures, and then secondary areas like the half bath, utility, storage, those can all be on the conventionally wired wireless communication systems. So you can do both. You can have the best of both worlds. Again, this is one way that a client might want to value engineer a space, and this is a great thing to work hand in hand with your technology professional to determine the best way to go about including lighting control in your designs. So some applications for the hybrid option, again, would be in a home addition, even in a guest house. If a client's going to want to control the lights in a guest house, that's another great option. And really, it just comes down to that end user homeowner preference and what's going to make the most sense for them. Now we're going to talk about the client benefits of lighting control. So the first is going to be the aesthetics. We'll talk about the convenience, the safety and security, and then the energy efficiency of lighting control systems. So I've referred to this a lot throughout the presentation. So the aesthetic is a huge part, and this is one of the main reasons why design build professionals like to choose those centralized lighting system, because it removes wall clutter. So rather than having a user experience where I'm sure many of you have done this, where you've walked into a room that has a lot of lighting loads and you have no idea what each one controls, and the client ends up maybe putting a label maker label over them, just isn't a simple user experience. But with lighting control, you can simplify that. Also, it can help you highlight the architecture and the design details of the room. And it also helps the client set the scene and mood. So by having lighting control, they can push one button, to control all of these dimmers and switches that we see here, versus having to manually go through and make those adjustments themselves when they're getting ready to entertain or to go to bed or wake up in the morning. So it really can help them set the scene. So they would be able to have one button control to access those scenes. Some of the examples we gave previously, like home and good night and vacation. They are all easy to use because they're customized, they're engraved, so they're very identifiable, and they're adjustable. So they're the way that the buttons are laid out, the number of buttons, and what each button is going to do is completely adjusted to the client's needs and lifestyle to enhance it with lighting control. Safety and security is another big benefit, being able to have that panic button like we talked about, where they could hit that button and have all of the interior lights come on to 100%, and then the exterior lights even flashing so that it makes it easy for the authorities to find a home and to help your client. Also, integrating with security systems is another thing. And the ability, like the example I gave, to never have to walk into a dark home, and having those home lights at the right time. So allowing the client even to be away from the home, but to have it appear that they are home based upon their normal actions and living in the home can really help to enhance the security. Energy efficiency is another thing. Dimming can substantially help to extend lamp life, which also helps with sustainability. One of the examples that I always like to give is that our eyes really can't tell the difference of a light, whether it's at 100% light level or 90% light level. So by dimming those lights, that when a client turns them on, they only go to 90%, it's going to always be saving 10% of energy, and it also will substantially increase the life of that lamp that it's controlling and just add to better sustainability. Occupancy sensing is another big one. So again, being able to detect if a person has entered a room and having lights go on or off automatically based upon occupancy can save a lot of energy. And then daylight harvesting with things like those photocell sensors that we talked about, where it can balance the levels of artificial electric light and natural daylight by changing those lighting levels based upon the amount of natural light coming into a room to save energy for a client too. Now, you're all design build professionals, so these design considerations are one of the most important part of this presentation today. So the important thing, you want to understand are what benefits are important to the client. Is it a client that's going to have a big, large space in their home and they don't want to have a large bank of light switches on the wall? That's an important benefit to have aesthetic and that simplicity of use to be able to clean that up with the lighting control system and have a simple keypad to control all of those loads. You also want to think about what building phase the project is in. So that's, of course, going to be a critical factor in determining what the lighting control options even are. Because if it's going to be, that centralized system, you want to make sure that that's very early in the process so the wiring to control those lights can be ran. If it's further along in the project and perhaps the electrician has already ran the lighting control, then in that case, you're going to be going with the wired lighting control solution. The other thing is the lighting plan and the fixture schedule. So I mentioned that a couple times throughout the presentation. That is going to be a really important document to make sure that the correct product is specified to control those light fixtures and the lamps and your overall lighting plan design. It's also going to help determine if you want to have a dimmer or a switch. All different types of fixtures are controlled differently, especially when it comes to LEDs. The enclosure locations, this is something important to consider because it does have different types of space requirements for these enclosures. So in some cases, like I mentioned, maybe you can't put the enclosure and run all of those loads back to one place. You might have to break it up into multiple locations throughout the home to make those wire runs shorter, which beneficial to the client, not only for the electrician and also reduce the cost of the project as well. So that's an important thing to consider when utilizing these lighting control systems and integrating them with your design. And then you also want to think about, we've talked a lot about the automated lighting and controlling the electric lighting, but also if the client's going to require motorized drapes or shutters in the home. This is something that also can be integrated with the lighting control system to allow that natural light. So of course there's a lot of benefits of motorized drapes and shutters, and it might be beneficial to the client to consider as part of the overall lighting control in their home. And then based upon the project itself, does there need to be some type of a generator or system backup in place? I know when Jeff introduced me, I was based out of LA for many, many years, and a lot of clients had issues with power to their homes and it not being good power. So those clients had to have generators in place to be able to control their lighting and other types of electric systems in the home as well. It's all going to depend upon the client and the location of the project, of course. And then taking it a step further to the exterior of the home, lighting control doesn't just have to be on the interior. The exterior lighting is also
Catherine
a very
Ross
important part of that.
has left
There's
the meeting.
different types of landscape and security lighting, of course, and then water and pool features and even gate lighting that are some of the subsystems that the client might want to integrate with that exterior lighting control system too. So these are all important design considerations. So to summarize what we learned today, we talked about standard versus automated lighting control. We went through lighting control design terminology, the different lighting control system components, the types of lighting control solutions, and the benefits of lighting control, and then the design considerations. So that concludes the official portion of the CEU course. So does anyone have any questions about that?
Everybody is still muted, so you can chat or
unmute yourself. I'll spur some conversation here with a couple of notes that I took during your presentation. One of the we've been doing lighting control and which goes into motorized window coverings and awnings and things like that for many years. We get a lot of questions along the way from the design community and from clients. One is about multi-way lighting. Typically, you think of that as like downstairs at the bottom of the stairs and at the head of the stairs upstairs. And when you're designing a home, you put in a three-way switch so you can turn it on from either location. That kind of planning goes away with these control systems. You can put a keypad anywhere to turn on, say, all the exterior lights, all the floodlights, for example, or at either end of a hallway and so forth. And you can change your mind 3 years later, for example, and program a button to be really anywhere to be able to control any other load. So that's perhaps a savings. It's certainly the mental anguish of trying to bake in all this three-way, four-way, five-way lighting circuits all goes away. Other things that come up is people ask me, hey, let's save money and only do some of the loads. And they typically go to eliminating guest rooms and closets and things like that. Let me give you some pros and cons here. One is in a bathroom. There's typically an exhaust fan, maybe a vanity light, and maybe a third light. I'm a proponent for automating all of them, and I'll tell you why. Is we always program exhaust fans so that when you press the button, 20 minutes later, the fan goes off automatically. And then you just press the button when you're taking a shower, you walk out, and you never forget to come back and turn that exhaust fan off later. For closets, pantries, garages, other dark areas, we like to put proximity sensors in. When you walk into the garage, the light turns on for you. And we're not just talking about the little bulb on the motor when you press the garage door open. We're saying when you come in from the house into the garage to get something out of the garage, maybe you have a refrigerator out there or something like that, that light can turn on. Same with a pantry, same with closets, especially closets that don't have doors. And or the door is left open. You just walk in, and then when you leave 15 minutes later, the light can go off. Integration with the security system is really good. I like it. We have automated lighting at our house. When you open the garage door, that little sensor trips. I turn on the floodlights in the driveway and all of the overhead lights in the garage. So you've got a well-lit driveway and a well-lit garage to come into, and then when all of the doors are shut, then it knows to turn itself off 15 minutes later. You can also automate things like landscape lighting so that with the astronomical clock, the accent lights on a house and the landscape lights go on at the same time, rather than at different times based on the lighting level or a timer that is probably typically wrong anyway for landscape lighting. So I like to integrate those. Also having a button in the garage so that when you want to check the lights, see if they're all working in the middle of the day, you have one button to turn on all those landscape lighting so you can walk around and see if everything is working. Because that's very difficult to do when everything is, hidden behind a bush and you got to, how do I turn this on and where's it zoned? And it's just a pain to do that. If you had a nice little clean button in the garage, it's something we like to do for our clients because part of our white glove service when we do the landscape lighting is to check all the lights a couple times a year and make sure they're all working. So those are some thoughts that I've got. You can automate things also based on temperature. Maybe you want an exhaust fan to turn on when the equipment closet gets above 85 degrees, for example. You could easily do that with a lighting control system. So any questions there? That hopefully that spurred some thought on automation. No, nothing in the chat window either. Michelle, maybe this is a good time to introduce the design build program, which is a unique program for this particular crowd, might benefit from it.
All right, I think we have a raised hand. I think Vivian just raised her hand.
Yes.
Vivian.
Hi, how are you? With a mobile device, can you put it on more than just one mobile device?
Oh, yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter how many control points there are.
Okay.
It could be keypads on the wall, iPads, iPhones, Android, iOS. It's compatible with all of them.
And so you could have two different iPads, one for the husband, one for the wife, or something like that.
Right, right. And
Okay.
what's cool about that is Michelle had mentioned the two-way feedback. So looking at your iPad, whether you're in the house or somewhere else, you can tell what lights are on or off or what their dimming level is because all of that feedback is coming back to the mobile device.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great for even controlling the home when you're away. You can always have that two-way feedback to see exactly what is happening there. So that's a huge benefit too. So if anyone else has any questions, please feel free, do the raise hand or the chat or just speak up. The CEU portion is done. So like Jeff mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit now that the CEU is over about
There is,
press.
let
Oh,
me interrupt you. There is actually one question came in from Nina.
okay.
She writes, if I need to value engineer for a project for now, would you suggest recommending a hybrid system and deciding on primary and secondary? Okay, so here's how I make these decisions. If you look at the number of switches on a wall in any particular room, once we get above 3, that's where it gets confusing and offensive. Some people set that number at 2. I think you can get away with 3. A typical bathroom would have a vanity light, an exhaust fan, and overhead lighting or a shower light. So you'd probably have 3 switches on the wall. And that's not too bad. Anything more than that is just wall clutter. And you'll see that in a foyer, in a kitchen, in a master bedroom, any of these, larger areas. So those areas there, I would say you need to home run those back to a centralized panel in the garage right from the outset because of the whole clutter and confusion. The secondary areas where you've got less switches on the wall, you could plan to do those wirelessly with the hybrid. And then that also means you can defer that decision to down the road and just pre-wire for the repeaters during construction. So that's typically the way we do those. We do have some houses where they literally wanted a single keypad in every room, the end, and so we just home run everything. But that's usually not typical. I mean, in very large homes, you probably have to do that, but in a typical, say, 5,000 square foot house, I think making a 3 switches on the wall in a single in a triple gang opening or less as a good judgment would be a good starting point.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, Michelle.
All right. You want me to go ahead and move forward with the design build program and just some details about Crestron?
Please.
Okay, perfect. All right. So one of the things that I want to point out, now that the CEU is done, I'm speaking a little bit more specifically to the brand that I represent, which is Crestron. But I work with design build professionals all over North America. And one of the things that we are noticing, smart home technology is why smart home technology? Well, there's a substantial growing demand in the design world. And this webinar series, and we've had some really great attendance, and thanks again to Boca for putting this on for all of you. Really is a testament to what's happening. And I want to encourage you that you're doing the right thing by understanding these different types of technologies that are out there. And 63 million American homes will qualify as smart by 2022. So that means that everything in the home is going to be internet connected. Those will be various levels of smart homes, but that's over half of the homes in America. So one of the important quotes from an architect that I recently had that I wanted to share is that homes are increasingly being built smart from the ground up. It's such an integral part of the home that we're designing it from the beginning, where beforehand technology was always an afterthought. It certainly was. And I think that as your clients come to you and ask about smart home technology and including it in your designs, it is something that the design build community as a whole is starting to think about very early on. So with Crestron, we really create products that make us stand apart in all of the other different types of smart home solutions that are out there. So we focused really on lighting control today, but with Crestron as a brand, we do manufacture the full end-to-end solution. So everything from lighting control to motorized shades, the whole home audio, video, if the client's going to have a dedicated home theater. We manufacture all of the touchscreens, remotes, the mobile control, the thermostats and sensors, and much more. Crestron has over 4,500 products. So it's very, very vast. We've been around for 49 years, based here in the US in Rockland, New Jersey, but we are a global company, and you can find us, of course, in residential projects and also in commercial. But we want to provide you with resources as a design build partner. We want to partner with you, and so we've created this design build program. The details about this are found on our website, crestron.com/DBP, but it's a program for lighting designers, builders, architects, interior designers, developers, and electrical engineers. And it is a referral program, so we do offer referral incentives on projects where you are specifying Crestron technology. You would receive 5% of the total MSRP value of the Crestron products on that project. Also, the best way to experience technology is to experience in your own personal use. So we do offer, some very special pricing, 75% off of MSRP for Crestron product for your office, your showroom, or your personal home, up to 15,000 product value. But it's a really great way for you to actually experience the technology and to feel comfortable when you're talking to your clients about it. You also get preferred access to our design showroom. So I know Boca has a showroom. We also have a showroom at the Dakota in Fort Lauderdale. That showroom's actually reopening on June 15th with all of the safety regulations, of course. But you do have preferred access to that. We have showrooms throughout the country as well. And you get access to state-of-the-art design tools free of charge. I'll show you what those are. You get invitations to events. Of course, all of those are virtual today and for the foreseeable future. And then, of course, the CEU courses in education that we have to offer, like you received here today. And we will basically back you and support you. Everything still goes through, our dealer base like Boca, but you do have the added resource of, Crestron behind you. The design tools that we have that are free of charge to you are our shade fabric binders. We have over 450 shade fabrics that we offer at Crestron. We use the same major fabric manufacturers as other solar shade brands out there on the market, Mermet and Pfeiffer, and we have, like I mentioned, over 450 available. We also partner with Hartman and Forbes, so we can provide their sample box. They make over 50 hand woven, bespoke luxury shade fabrics that are all natural. And those can be something that's used obviously for your projects. We can provide those samples. We also have the Cameo color ring samples for the different keypads, so you can see the colors that are available in the plastic options. And then there's also something we call our Elegance metal face plates, which are just an additional aesthetic option for those keypad user interfaces that we talked about throughout the presentation. So to sign up, there is an online form on that website, and you would complete an agreement and a W-9 and provide your credentials. Typically, we're going to verify through your website. We do ask that you register your projects, so the projects that you're working with, and you partner with a participating Crestron technology professional, just like Boca Home Theater. And we also ask that you attend an annual seminar, which you've already done. So you've met that requirement right there. But that can be done anytime throughout being a partner. And of course, we want to hear your vision. We want to hear what you're passionate about. We want your feedback so that we have the ability to make changes to our product offerings that really suit the design build community. Like I mentioned, it's technology being thought of much earlier than before, and we really want to be a partner. So that kind of concludes that portion of this. And thank you so much for your time. I saw a lot of questions coming in and I was trying to read them as I was talking, but I think Jeff is answering them as we go. Jeff, was there anything else we should address?
Well, yeah, there was a question on where you could go and see this stuff. We do have a full showroom here with everything controlled and all the various control options from, keypads, touch panels, mobile devices. We have, shades, and we're even controlling the doors and things like that, garage doors even. And we're taking appointments, and really you can come anytime you want. Just contact me or Marcio for an appointment, and we take Saturday appointments as well. The Dakota, is that even open now?
So the Dakota, yes. So the Dakota as a building is open. There's a lot of showrooms within Dakota that have opened by appointment only. Our showroom in Dakota is still closed until June 15th. We will reopen by appointment only with, of course, safe distancing and PPE, et cetera, covering all of the bases there for your safety. So that reopens June 15th. And, you'll have my information. You can feel free to contact me, or of course, Jeff or Marcio can also, provide you with a tour of our space as well, in addition to what they have there. So you can do both. They can be your host at our showroom. It's just, our space is just demonstrative. So, it's not an environment where you would go and purchase Crestron from us. That all goes through our dealers. Like Jeff and Marcio. So, it's a great place to really learn what technologies are available from Crestron.
One other thing I was going to add on the person that was asking the question about designing value, it was Nina, value engineering. If you need design assistance, we're able to help you with that. And so we can even produce CAD work if that's necessary.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's all from me. So thank you so much, everyone. And I really appreciate the time. Marcio will be sending out the certificates like we talked about. And thank you again. I hope to see you in a couple weeks for the next webinar.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate your time.